Hello, my name is Victor, and in today's video, with all of the craziness and volatility that we still have in the market here in March of 2026, I want to highlight the story of how I got into one specific stock, and that stock is Realty Income, ticker symbol O. And we're not going to go too far back. This was June of 2024. So just a couple of years ago, and during that time I had some extra money. I had just sold out of a big position, but I didn't want to just put that money back into stocks that I already owned. My goal at the time was to diversify my portfolio a bit, but there was one massive problem at the time. And for those of you who have been in the market since 2024, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because back then we had the Fed hiking up interest rates at the fastest rate that we had seen in like 40 years. An important side note as well is that on top of wanting to diversify my portfolio, my stock portfolio that is, I was also thinking about getting into real estate as a way to diversify all of my assets. But like we mentioned, with the interest rates just soaring month after month, it seemed to be out of control. There was no way that I was going to get into a mortgage that was like 6 or 7%, especially when the mortgage rates had been like 3 to 4% for the last 10 years. So I just could not see myself signing up for a mortgage with that crazy amount of interest. And after I did some research, I found that there is an alternative. And the answer for me back in 2024 was REITs. And I know what you might be thinking. Okay, well, if you got into REITs, why Realty Income specifically? Well, back in 2024, Realty Income was dirt cheap. Because of the interest rates being so high, that absolutely affects stocks that are in the REIT category. And the reason for that was because of the interest rates that we just talked about. If interest rates are higher, that means they can't go out and get new properties as easily as they could have if interest rates were lower, because these mortgages, these properties are just going to be more expensive, and that's the bottom line. But what really got me into Realty Income was the starting dividend yield, which was at the time 5.8%. And just to drive the point home of just how big of a deal Realty Income was back in 2024, their starting dividend yield at the time was 5.8%. Compared to right now in March of 2026, that starting dividend yield is 5%. Which, if you ask me, is still not too shabby for a starting dividend yield. And see, the thing is, I was thinking even back then, you're telling me that if I were to buy Realty Income and if this stock price were to not even move, let's say Realty Income was to stay flat for an entire year, I could still count on a 5.8% return just based on the dividends, which would technically be a little bit higher, especially because I like to do a drip on my dividends, but we're not going to get into all of that complicated mess in this video. But 5.8% was really dang good, and I had to take the plunge, and I was able to get Realty Income back then. And to this day, I still love Realty Income, and let me give you a couple of examples of why. And the very first reason, and it should probably be the most obvious, is that Realty Income has been around for a long time and has been increasing dividends for a very long time as well. In fact, in this past week, they announced that they have increased their dividend for the 134th time for common stock. I mean, that is amazing and just goes to show that they are absolutely dedicated to that dividend and making sure that shareholders are the priority. Now, after this most recent dividend increase, my current yield is actually about 6% now. So I've grown that starting dividend yield by, 20 basis points now, not even in 2 years since I've owned the stock. So I love to not only be able to have a drip on my dividend stocks, which will buy me more dividends over time, but the magic of this snowball that happens with dividends is that on top of having the dividends buy you more stock and having more stock gives you more dividends, great dividend companies will also increase that payment amount every single year. Or in the case of realty income, they tend to have tiny little increases over the course of the year, and then they'll have one bigger increase. The third reason why I love realty income is that it gives me that real estate diversification that I was looking for 2 years ago. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. You don't really own real estate, you own a REIT. But in my opinion, it is the next best thing when it comes to diversification in real estate. And I can tell you from experience because my father, may he rest in peace, was great at investing in actual real estate. He owned a single property home like 10 years ago. He was able to pay that off and then get into a second single family home that I grew up in my late teen to early 20 years. But what he did was he started renting out that first single family home. And I can tell you, it is not as easy as people make it seem to be. It's not just, okay, we have a renter in the home, they pay me every month, and cha-ching, we're making money. I wish it were that simple, but I can tell you the number of phone calls that I had to help him with the actual renter where it was like, oh, well, we have to go help them with the lawn, something happened, or they have a pest that they need to get rid of, or the heater went out and we have to go take care of it. Like, there's just so much that comes into play whenever it comes to actually owning a physical building that people do not, they do not take into consideration. And what I love about REITs is that I don't have to deal with any of that. I don't have to deal with the renter calling me directly and saying, hey, I need to get this fixed, or hey, I have this problem, can you help me out? Or all of the other miscellaneous things that come into property ownership, like property taxes. So none of that. I let a company like Realty Income handle all of that, and I just collect my dividend every single month because the other great thing about Realty Income is that they pay their dividend monthly. Something else that I'm telling you just is amazing to know that month after month, I can expect that amount of money to be deposited into my portfolio to buy me more realty income. I love it. And the fact of the matter is knowing that I can count on that money month after month from realty income, because as we've seen, they have increased that dividend 134 times. They have the history and the reputation behind them that I know that I can count on them when it comes to that money. And that gives me a psychological stability, especially in volatile markets like right now. I don't have to worry about realty income. I'm not even thinking about it. It is a sleep well at night type of stock that I know I can count on. And during crazy times like right now, it pays, it's worth its weight in gold, I'm telling you. I would love to know if any of you own realty income in your portfolio, or if you have any opinions on REITs in general or the stock itself, ticker symbol O. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If you made it this far into the video, do not forget to subscribe. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.